Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Friday in the TEFL Development Hub. We've got another fabulous session coming up this morning. I've got kind of a big smile on my face because I'm really excited to jump into the virtual learning environment with Nergiz Kern. Nergiz, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks, Teresa, for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Fantastic. So Nergiz is the co-author of The A to Z of Immersive Language Learning and Teaching in Virtual Reality, which is available online and as a paperback as well.
Yeah, it's also available as a paperback in not just Amazon. There are a couple of other bookstores also you can get it from because I know some people don't want to order from Amazon.
Mhm, mhm. Fantastic. So, you came along last time and you were talking to us about the metaverse. And now today we're going to look at virtual learning environment. And of course, the idea is that you don't need to have a virtual reality headset to do these activities, do you?
Exactly, yeah. That's actually very important to know because many teachers just switch off. They say, "Yes, I heard, I know, or I heard that it's wonderful and it's good for language learning for many reasons, but I can't use it. We can't buy headsets; they're expensive, or we don't have the internet bandwidth for it, or other reasons." So we want to show that it is actually possible without any extra devices.
Hmm. Fantastic. Yep. And we're going to be trying it out together in a minute. But before we get into the virtual learning environment itself, so I love the way that the book is laid out as an A to Z. And so you're basically not covering every letter of the alphabet, but you're going through the alphabet with some ideas around the concept of immersive language learning. So one of my favorite ones was J for joy. I think I was immediately attracted to that one when I saw it in the index. So, I mean, why do you think that joy is so important in language learning and in particular in virtual learning?
Yeah. So joy, when we talk about design, like for example, app design or web design or UX design, we often use the word delight or delightful. It's a delightful experience. That's what you want to have. In education, we don't use the word delightful, although who wouldn't want to deliver delightful language lessons? I'm sure they happen. But we often use the word joy, which just the sound of it is good, isn't it? And I mean, all of us know that positive affect is important for learning. Yeah, that students feel well, they are motivated, they are not anxious. All of this helps learning. Um, and joy is an additional uh, concept, if you want, or feeling that helps learners. And there's even research on that. There was a study, for example, which we mentioned in the book, where they took EFL learners into virtual reality. And one of the things that they wanted to look at acceptance of VR, and also something that is called cognitive absorption. It's a bit detailed. I don't want to go into that. But in any case, joy was one of the things that was an additional factor why they learned better
Mhm.
and also why they felt more immersed in VR. So again, there is this overlap between VR and language learning immersion, and that joy helps in both of these things. And the more immersed you feel in VR, the more you benefit from it. And joy, as I said, helps in both. And in the book, we talk a lot about joyful concepts in VR, that it's game-like. It has a game-like nature, so not gamified. That's something different. It's not about games either, but it's just, we will see it in a moment also when we go into the virtual environment, that it's cartoon-like. It's just not as serious as in the classroom,
Mhm.
and this adds to the joyfulness of it. And what else was there that I wanted to say? Yeah, storytelling, for example, is important, and immersion, reduction of foreign language anxiety. So it's just this environment leads to more relaxed learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I'm a big kid and I'm really looking forward to getting into this virtual learning environment. And you mentioned there how it's quite cartoony. I think sometimes people worry that it is only for kids as well, but what we're going to see is actually it works really well with any age group, with your business English learners as well. It's not just about the kind of the game-like effect of it, is it?
Yeah, it's exactly. That's something that we hear often. But you can choose environments. You know, you can go into different environments, and you have business people even meeting in virtual environments like these that are cartoonish. They have their regular meetings. There are conferences in these environments with hundreds, sometimes thousands.
Oh, I've lost Nergiz. Is it me?
Oops. Oh, I lost you
Oh,
for a
yep, we're
minute,
back.
but
We're
you're
back.
back. Okay. So sorry.
No
It
worries.
seems to be unstable. So yeah, it's not just for kids. There are universities who are using it for language learning and for many, many other topics, which makes it useful for ESP learning as well. If you choose environments that are suitable for different um, areas, you know, subject areas, then you could take your ESP students also in a virtual environment.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, talking about environments, do you want to
You
share
can't
your
wait.
screen? I mean, we're already inside frame. Um, and yeah, oh,
Yes,
go.
okay. So this particular one is called. I want to actually say something else very briefly before we
Mm.
jump in, because we will be in this cartoonish environment. But virtual reality doesn't mean just that. Okay, we will maybe we can go into that later, but you can also watch 360 videos, for example, that have been recorded in the physical, in the real world. So there are VR can be many different things. The one that we are going to look at now is a virtual world, a cartoon-like virtual world, and it's also called social VR because you can be together with other people. Not all virtual reality apps are like that. Some are single user apps where you just put on your headset or you're on the screen or on your desktop, but you're on your own, perhaps talking to AI chatbots or so, or not talking at all, but just going through some activities. So that's single user ones, but obviously for language learning, social VR is a very attractive thing because you can be together with other students and the teacher can be there with students as well, and you can do things together. So let's do something together.
Fingers
Let's
crossed.
jump in. Hopefully it works. So this is our virtual world, and we are in one of the scenes. You can choose many different scenes. This one is called Frame VR, but there are many other similar platforms. There is Teresa in robot form in front of me. Hello.
Hello.
And you can actually, you can react with emojis. I don't know whether you can see these. And you can change your avatar to something else too, so you can look more human-like. And there are many, many other options. So, and in this case, we are in a kind of here's Sasha is Frame VR's AI chatbot. I usually ignore Sasha. Yeah, but it still feels like, okay, I'm being impolite or something. Anyway, so in this case, we are in a kind of, what is it, a town center? Yeah, so just so you can, that the viewers can see what it looks like. So you have different kinds of buildings. And as you can also see, we have some boards here. So you can put up boards if you want to show different things. For example, on the left, there is a website, but and you can actually type or click on these. So it's interactive, you can scroll, you can go back, you can scroll here. So you could be on YouTube, you could be on any kind of website. Then on this side, we have a whiteboard. Teresa, I don't know whether you want to try drawing.
Ooh.
At the top, it says, if you can see it, it says, I have to end drawing, and then maybe you can start. I don't know. There you go.
I haven't tried this before. This is great.
So you can imagine activities where students can draw on these boards. You could have a board on both sides. You could have two teams or several teams, as many as you like, and they draw and maybe guess what they have drawn, or one person describes something, the others draw, all these activities you could do. So I'm just going to click on this thing at the top, and you can see you could have an image on the board, you can upload a video, audio, you can have text labels, shapes, a poll if you wanted to do that, PDF documents, and the news, web browsers, and so on, and a couple of other things. So these are quite flexible. I don't know whether the audience can hear it, but when I cross on the ground, you can see these blue lines. And when you cross them, you hear a sound. Click, kind of clicky sound. And what these are, it's like audio sections. So basically, those who are within that line, they can hear each other, but they can't hear those outside, and those outside can't hear the ones inside. So it's very easy to create breakout rooms. So rather than on Zoom, where you have to, as the teacher, you have control and you create the breakout rooms and you send them there, and then you can't see them, you don't know what they're up to. Here, you just basically, like in the physical classroom or any physical space, you can tell your students, group one, you go to the right, group two, you go to the left, and then you can, when they're working together or not, you can at least see them, and then you can walk towards them and listen in, and get them, maybe even when you start walking towards them, they will start working on their task. So this is very nice for group work. And then you can use, of course, the context. Yeah, that's why VR is so great. You can have you have different environments, different spaces to select, and you can choose one that fits what you're teaching. For example, if you want to teach vocabulary about buildings or shops, or let's say you're practicing giving directions. So rather than imagining things in the classroom, you can actually be in that sort of environment. And then let's say I want to, you can ask me, where is the cinema or the bank? And I can tell you, walk down where you can see that brown building and then turn right. You can't do that in the classroom unless you have pictures or a map or something. So yeah, so we can change to another environment, perhaps.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I have here my go to button, and then I'm just going to go to my frames, and I know where you want to go. But Maybe I don't. So what you have here, we are in the town now, but there is, for example, this outdoor hall if you want to practice presentations. We just talked about ESP or EAP, if you want to practice presentations in business English or academic English, you can take your students here, and then you have the other students as the audience. It's much more realistic than on Zoom if they have to practice giving a presentation in front of people rather than online. Online is wonderful because we also need to know how to present online, but it's a different feel if you have to actually stand in front of people. So you can simulate that and they can upload their presentation slides. Again, you have these different boards. I'm not going to, oops, I think I clicked. Oh. Okay, I said I didn't want to go. All right, so let's connect. Um, don't allow. So there we have Sasha again, always following. So I'm standing now in front of the board. So you have again, at the moment the website, but you could upload PowerPoint slides. You have 3 boards, so you could have different things on the boards or the same presentation for everybody to see. And yeah, imagine you're standing here and the rows are full with other people. You could even put here, let's say, dummy audience, if you don't have so many people or students in your class, you could have again avatars that are non-player playing characters if you want. You could also invite other classes if you're working with a teacher somewhere else in another country even. You could invite each other and present to each other about your country or your town. So lots of possibilities. And let me just go to the resort because it's maybe a bit more joyful. Um, so I think, and the thing is, if I want to invite Teresa here, because we left Teresa, we
I'm
left
still
you
in the town,
in the
wandering
town.
around.
All I need to do is to share the link, the URL. So I'm going to copy the URL and then share it in the chat box with now we were talking about being disoriented. So here is my Zoom window. Where is my Zoom window? Uh,
That's okay. I think I can probably come in Nergiz Resort.
I have. Oh, do you have it from
Uh,
last time? Maybe from when I
let's
found the chat.
try.
I found the chat. Okay. So obviously, normally you're not in Zoom and in frame, but because we are demonstrating it now, we have to be a bit careful also with the audio. We have it switched off in frame so that we can and everybody can hear us in Zoom. And I think has Teresa arrived?
I'm here.
Can you
Yeah, there
see
you are.
me? Ah, there you are. You've changed color.
Yeah. No longer
Hi
yellow.
there. All right. So as you can see, now imagine we often do discussions when we have online classes, right, in Zoom or in the classroom, but it's always the same setting, right? You're sitting around the tables on your chairs, or in Zoom you have the squares of with the faces, but sometimes you can just, even if you don't want to really use the context in VR, it can make it just more joyful to repeat that word if you can sit around here in this nice uh, area with comfortable seating and nice colors, and then have your discussion. And then if something comes up that you want to use like vocabulary or provide feedback afterwards, you can just walk over here and you have again boards They can sit in circles, and then on the board you could show them things that have come up, right stuff that has come up, or maybe you've prepared something before. So again, you can plan your lesson with different activities and then use the different areas to teach those activities. It's again, you have the lines on the ground, as you can see, the audio sections, and you can go outside. Let's say you've done one activity, the discussion while sitting, then you went to the board maybe to review some vocabulary or grammar, um, or some other activity where students have to show pictures, and then at the end to wrap up, for example, or for another activity, you can come out here. You could also have different groups working in different rooms. One group is here, the other one inside, and then they can come all back together to share their discussions and whatever the outcome was, whatever the task was. So, and this is a very easy way to start with virtual reality. Of course, this goes much, much deeper. Here we are using environments that are available for free, and there is a long list of them available. But of course, you can also build yourself, and they have AI integrated, so you can use prompts to build things. You have a library of objects, but you don't have to start with these things. You can just even just with these environments that are already available and with the boards, you can do so much to just bring a bit of joy to your class and change up things a little bit and make it easier for learners to do role plays and so on. So I could just go on, but I'll stop here.
No, I mean, and I think as well, it's actually really user friendly as a student, as a user. So I'm just controlling my little character with the WASD buttons. And then like Nergiz said, you can click on boards, etc., to interact with them. So I think as well in that respect, there's not a huge learning curve for users, for students. It's fairly intuitive in terms of I want to go that way, I want to go this way.
Exactly. And
Um,
I want to sit down. Now I'm sitting. Um, yeah, so exactly, Teresa. I mean, Teresa, this is your second time that you're using Frame, isn't? I don't know whether you tried without me, but there was no training session.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like I say, it is in terms of just the very basics, picking up, moving around, um, easy peasy. And I think it's one thing, obviously, people can't see you at the moment, but you've actually created your own avatar. Um, so I think that's really fun as well for students. They can create their own persona, they can have a character, which adds to kind of that idea of immersing yourself into English. Often we talk about learners needing to change their chip when they come into the classroom or put on their English voice and things like that. So that can really help as well, I think, in terms of helping them to be this other person that's speaking this foreign language.
exactly. So yeah, I don't know. As I said before, I used to be able to turn around and to look at me through the camera, but I can't do that now. I have a human avatar. So when you enter frame, you have this robot kind of avatar like Teresa's, but you can change it and you can again use that for different activities, like dressing up in different ways and talking about looks, hairstyles, clothing styles, colors, and whatnot. And but it also helps, as you just said, with this embodying this different persona, which can make you feel more relaxed. This is one reason why it can reduce foreign language anxiety when you are in VR. It's not you who's making the mistakes. You're a bit behind a mask if you want to.
Mhm.
Um, And then, of course, being in the environment also makes students often want to speak more because they actually have something to speak. They forget that they're performing, that they're in class and practicing English. They at first will probably have them running around, whether they're adults or children, and just exploring. So it can be distracting. It's very important at first to give them actually the chance to do that. You know, you
Mhm.
don't want to come in this beautiful environment and then just tell them sit down and
Mm.
listen.
True, true.
Let them run around first, and maybe you could make that into an activity too, as long as they speak in English. You know, oh, you know, look at this and so on. So
Yeah,
language,
I was quite taken
um,
by the flamingos.
yeah, I know. Right. So,
Fantastic. So we were talking as well before. You mentioned that you can put chatbots into these virtual learning environments as well. And I know in the book you talk quite a lot around Gen AI and some of the positives, but also some of the drawbacks, or not perhaps drawbacks, but potential challenges or
mhm.
disadvantages. I mean, first of all, what do you see as the positives of using Gen AI in virtual
Okay.
learning?
So we call them also conversational AI because you can have conversations with them. And many, I think there's probably hardly anyone who hasn't used ChatGPT or similar Gen AI tools to either text chat with them or also audio chat. Now in VR, you have embodied AI. So just like you look like a robot, for example, or Sasha, who we left somewhere else. Yeah, Sasha is an example of a conversational AI, an embodied AI, and you can chat with it. So the positive is that because it's embodied, it feels more like a person, and the conversation feels more like a real conversation that you're having live with somebody who's sitting across or you're standing opposite you. Whereas when you have the flat AI, which is just text chat or audio, it is more like when you're chatting with somebody who's at a distance, right? We do that also, yeah. So that could be very authentic too, because we do chat with each other on various apps without seeing each other. But if you want to emulate having a real physical conversation with somebody who's there with you, then embodied AI can help. So
Mhm. Yep.
that's
Yep. And yeah, I like that idea of those kind of real world interactions. So, sometimes when you're a student and you're playing the role of someone, it can feel a little disembodied. Like when you're doing a role play and you're a waitress, for example, and you're 17 years old and you haven't worked as a waitress yet. So yeah, being able to have that sort of conversation with the character would be really useful as well, I think.
exactly, yeah, yeah, that's a very good example too. Yeah, you could give the AI a role. Yeah, you are the waiter or waitress and I'm the guest or whatever, or you're a friend or you're, I don't know, the check-in person at the hotel. Um, so you could give them different roles. And
Mhm.
it's also good for the teacher, you know, because often in these cases, the teacher has to play the other person. And because the students sometimes don't know the other to play the other role, or somebody has to do it. And you could also have students with talking in different corners with different AI chatbots on different topics. You could have one student have a conversation with several chatbots as a group, you know, group work. But of course, it's also nice for students who are on their own, who don't have a partner. It's of course, they could come into Frame VR or social VR platforms with other students outside class as well. But sometimes you just don't have anybody, or you don't want to annoy them with your topics that you want to practice, the dialogues that you want to repeat,
Hmm.
because humans are not as patient, right? So if suddenly at night you feel like I want to practice English a bit more, and this it didn't go well earlier in class, or so you could come into VR and practice until you drop, and the AI wouldn't complain.
Yep, yep. It's fantastic. Um, I mean, I think probably anyone who's watching this who is a fan of virtual learning environments, we don't need to do anything to convince them of how great it is. Um, so hopefully we can convince people who might be a bit more skeptical about it, of all the benefits. Um, I mean, I know another thing that a lot of people would be worried about would be kind of the dangers around Gen AI. What do you feel you can do to kind of mitigate those dangers?
Okay, yeah, that's a very important topic. And it's not, it doesn't relate just to VR. We know that by now it's been in the news and in research that, especially with younger students, they can get into areas that they shouldn't be going into. Regular, uh, public or freely available chatbots are not always regulated, or they are not trained in the way we would like it to be for students. So we have to be extremely careful here. What happens is that in educational VR, you can actually train the chatbots to not talk about certain topics or to talk about specific topics. Now, this I can't tell you about Frame VR, whether they have put any limits, whether it's specially designed for learning, although the platform itself is mostly for serious uh, learning or for businesses. So it is generally a safer place. But you can, if you are in a more public social VR platform like Meta's Horizon or Roblox or Fortnite or whatnot, where many young people hang around, there can be dangers from AI that you meet that is not suitable for learners. So we have to be careful here. Of course, you can have also real characters, people who are with their avatars in these virtual worlds who might not be nice either. So there have been harassment cases. So there are risks that you should be aware of. And yeah, I would suggest in class to you have to be there, obviously, with your students. If they're older students, they will you can talk with them about the risks if they want to use chat bots to practice outside class. And with students, maybe with younger students, of course, we should also talk with them about the risks, but perhaps then also talk with their parents or so. If they want to practice outside class, they shouldn't be left alone. The parents should be there and they should know they should be able to see the conversations.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I mean, this is something as well that you do talk about quite a lot in the book around both digital well-being and also physical well-being. Um, because what are some of the concerns, or what are some of the potential dangers to physical safety?
Yeah, we have that as well. It was actually very important for us that in the book we mention um, all the risks that we could think of, because online that was perhaps even one of the main motivations, I would say, because uh, what happens often is when there is a new technology, you have people, including educators, who are enthusiastic about it. And we then tend to speak sometimes just about the benefits, because that's how we look at technology, right? When there is something new, oh, what could I do with this? And it's understandable. I've done that myself. But it's important that there is also a place where you can learn about the risks. And there are quite a few, most of them associated to the VR headset. So once you leave that aside, you have fewer risks, but you still have some. So the physical risks are mainly with the VR headset, because when you wear the VR headset, you can't see your surroundings. And so although you create a barrier, it still happens that you can trip and fall over, or you hit your arm because you have controllers, you hit your arm um, against something. Um, so these are uh, some of the risks. Then, of course, many experience dizziness or nausea with the VR headset. There are ways that you can train yourself. Apparently, it's more women who experience nausea for some reason. Um, so these are, yeah, these are reasons why you shouldn't also force your students, even if you're lucky enough to have a class set or so, put on the headset. Now we're going into VR, but to talk about these things, to train them, to tell them, if you're not feeling well, you can take it off. If you are somewhere where there is something that makes you feel scared, you can close your eyes and then take off the headset. So these things need to be carefully considered, and students should be warned about it. And yeah, you can also include students, of course, because some of them might have experience with virtual reality. So you can ask them as well, have they encountered any difficult situations in virtual reality, or has anything happened to them in the physical world? And then, that could be a way to move into this topic and to talk with them about the different risks, but then also how it's beneficial for language learning.
And I mean, I know that because this is such an important topic for you both, you've actually made the chapter on physical and digital safety that's available free, isn't it,
Yes,
from your
yes,
website?
exactly. So when maybe you can share that later, but if you go to my website, nergizkern.com, and click on A to Z book, at the end of that page, you can download the chapter or the entry on health and physical safety, because we do want teachers to be aware. If you're enthusiastic and you want to take your students, you don't want it to be to end in a negative way. So it's good to be prepared as an educator and to talk with your students about some of the risks, not everything, but you could start with that. So yes, please
Mhm.
go ahead and download it.
Yep, I'll share the link in the commenty bit about the video. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean,
Thank you.
we don't want to be doomsayers though, because it really is such a valuable learning tool that we've got here. So let's go back to some of the positives. And one of the things, I don't know why it is, but
Shall I stop sharing, or shall we say?
yeah, you could actually.
Okay, so I can see
Um,
more of you.
hello. Um, I don't know what it is, but like certain letters appeal to me more. So Q is for quests in
Ah,
the
yeah.
book. Yeah.
You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so some of the ways that we can use the virtual learning environment to get more from our learners. Yeah.
Okay. So have you used quests in your classrooms? In
I don't think I ever have. I mean, I remember years ago, like there used to be quite a few web quests available, but I think I was never that techie.
Okay, yeah, I remember actually quests as I started using the internet in the early 90s, and uh, one of the first things that became popular was quests, because in the beginning we didn't have this interactive internet, we couldn't chat with each other. It was mainly retrieving information, but that meant you could go to different places and retrieve information and then come back and present that information. So Web quests were very popular in the 90s and maybe, I don't know, early 2000s. And it's a similar concept. So you could do quests in VR, especially in virtual worlds where you can visit different places. Yeah, like here, the different scenes. But you also have really vast virtual worlds where you can visit almost like different countries, different famous cities, or a forest, or anything that you can imagine exists. So you could plant objects in different scenes, and then, they could retrieve them. They could be related to a theme that you're working on in the course book. It could be that they have to create a story out of the items they find, for example. So the first task would be to go in pairs or in small groups and find at least 5 objects or whatever, and then come back together and then create a story around those objects. It could be information, bits of information they find in different places. One example, concrete example, where you don't have to do it yourself, is one of my favorite VR experiences for children. It's called Pollinator Park. And an EU project. You can find it on the internet. It's because it's an EU project, it's available in different languages as well, European languages. And it has to do with bees and pollination, obviously. So the experience is you walk through it's set in the future, and you walk through a very beautiful, joyful, delightful scenery, and you learn about pollinators. So that's one thing. But this place has been created by, I think her name is Beatrice, a scientist, and she has written diary entries. And these diary entries are, it's a bit, they are not in all in one place. So when you go through these different stations, you can unlock parts of the diary. And then afterwards you can read them. And then, of course, once you have a diary and you manage to find the different pieces, afterwards you can do a lot of work, reading work and vocabulary work and so on with these diary entries. So it's really a lovely experience, but it's a kind of quest because you have to go through this futuristic botanical garden kind of place and learn about pollination and unlock these diary entries. So yeah, so it's a immersive quest if you want.
Nice. Awesome. I'm gonna find the link and I'll add that to the chat as well because it sounds fantastic. And I mean, talking there, you mentioned in the book as well about project-based learning. Um, have you had any experience of using projects with your students?
Um, Actually, it's been a while that I've taken students myself into VR, but yes, we have done that, and I can give you one simple example, perhaps, of how you can extend. I mean, you can use Pollinator Park, for example, is a good one. I just said, you can do things in VR, but then out of the experience, then you could have, for example, students create posters about pollinators and use the information they found in the VR experience. They could take pictures in VR and then use those pictures for stories. So I like pictures and picture stories, for example, with students, especially if they're lower level. So you could go to a nice place, either one, or students can choose the place they want to go,
Mhm.
a holiday resort, or I don't know, a forest, a park, a building. Take pictures in virtual reality and then bring them back. And then they don't need to be all the time in VR. You don't have to have the whole lesson in VR. So then in the physical classroom or online, they can collaboratively do something with these pictures. like creating a comic strip, writing a story, a blog post, and then adding the pictures in. And they could relate their VR experience, but they could also just make up a story where they use the pictures to illustrate. So instead of students going to search pictures on the internet, stock images or so, they can take their own images for their stories to illustrate them. Another project you could do is creating your own animated videos. And this is a way of making role playing less anxiety inducing. I never liked role play activities in the classroom. Uh, I was always very shy at school. And as an adult, it feels sometimes even worse, to have to role play in the classroom in front of other students. So if you package it differently, like we are going to create a video, and they learn digital skills, which is important, and it becomes a totally different activity. So what they can do is either they can use a dialogue from the course book, or they can write their own script. Then they can go into a VR platform, especially one that allows them to change the environment, to change their avatars, to dress them up, for whatever role play they're going to do. And then they can record the VR experience, the role play. And now they're not doing it to show whether they can use the language, but they're doing it for the video. So it's a lot of fun. And so once they've recorded that, then they can edit the video. They can have maybe different snippets and put them together, edit out something or so. And after that, they could share it publicly. Because it's not the students, you're not sharing the students' faces
Hmm.
online. It's the avatars, especially if there are no names. So that's easier to do. They could share it with each other. Then that could be the end, the end product of the project. But you can also use these recordings to provide feedback. So students could transcribe their own role plays and make corrections themselves, maybe make changes and then do it again. The teacher could provide feedback, or the other students, another group could provide feedback, and then they could redo it. So lots of things you can do with, again, video recording is possible, or it's basically screen recording, yeah?
Hmm.
Is possible on most computers, and also with the VR headsets. VR headsets actually aren't even that good for videos, because you might have seen these shaky videos taken in VR because you move your head. Um, but if it's on a desktop computer, you can record it and then work with that like you would with other recordings students make.
Awesome. So many fantastic ideas. And one thing that you were mentioning there as well, going back to this idea of being in different contexts. Like I work almost exclusively online now, and I do find attending online conferences and things like that. I love being back at in-person conferences. Attending online conferences, they seem much less memorable. And I think it's because this is it's always the same context. Whereas actually if you're sending your students into a cafe for one lesson, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that lesson we were in the cafe and there were these posters on the wall. And then the next lesson you're chatting to them in a park. And it's like, oh yeah, we were in the park and we were talking about the benefits and drawbacks of veganism, or it just provides something different than just this
Exactly.
screen every day, I think.
Exactly. Yes, you're creating real memories. I remember what happened in one of my classes in 2009, for example, in VR. Somebody, I don't know what, we had a class, and then somebody, it was a public area, and somebody dropped in who we called back then griefer. Basically, somebody with a bad intention, who wants to disrupt the activity, like Zoom bombing, if you want,
Hmm.
but in
Hmm.
in VR or in a physical classroom. Imagine somebody suddenly comes in to disrupt. Um, and it turned out well. We became almost friends, and he wanted to hang out with us, and was even invited to the party at the end of the course and so on. But it didn't start out like that. And but I remember it, I remember that moment, what happened, what we talked about, and many, many other things. And um, I have really fond memories. So it's not, I don't know how many, even you said Zoom, but it's the same in the physical classroom, yeah, because it's always the same. You have the board, you have the desks and the seats. So um, it's kind of always the same setting.
Hmm.
But in VR, you can do things together without going on to physical field trips, which you can maybe do once or twice a year if you're lucky. And there are other risks as well. If you go to physical field trips, you need to also do risk assessment and everything, and more serious things can happen. So you're doing things together. You feel emotionally about what is happening. So your emotions are involved, hopefully positively. But even if it's negative, you'll remember it. And yeah, you're creating real memories and you remember it. And so there are a lot of studies on this, that is the reason why VR is, or language learning in VR, the language that you learn in VR. Firstly, you learn faster, and second, you retain it longer.
Awesome. Awesome. Fantastic. I mean, I was convinced even just when we had our like little practice session a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to kind of really dig into and frame and find out more. But the version that we were looking at today, that's free, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So at the moment, there is a free version, and you can be up to 8 people
Hmm.
in one room. So if it's the teacher, 7 students, but students could also create their own accounts. And for example, if you're doing project work and they have to do different things, build different environments or do different role plays or so, and record each other, for example, they could go into their own accounts if you trust the students. Or if you're in class, you can also see, you'd have different computers that the students are working on, so you could still see what they're doing. So yeah, you could extend it to more students if you wanted, or you could also have one account, but some students are working in VR, capturing, for example, images, doing a role play without the teacher being around, and then the other students might be at different stations and different stages of their project, working in the classroom. One thing I just remembered, you can also have conversations and role plays transcribed automatically in Frame VR, so that even if this teacher is not around to listen in to everyone, you have the transcript. So you could then look at the transcript and provide feedback.
Wow. I mean, it's a great
You're
tool.
sold.
Yeah, I'm sold on it.
So
I think I really do think it's great. And I mean, I remember when you launched the book, we were using another virtual learning environment to go in. We had like a live book launch in VR as well, and that was really exciting too. So there's so many tools available to us nowadays.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there are many different ones. They have different functions, different positives and downsides. You just have to see what do you actually want to do in VR. That's the good thing. We are not dependent on the headset or on one particular headset, not on one platform. you and also not on one type of VR experience. As we said at the beginning, sometimes you might just use cheaper VR headsets where you just want students to watch short 360-degree videos. So you
Hmm.
wouldn't need to go into virtual reality for that or have expensive headsets with controllers and so on. So there are lots of options, and which is great because then you can think about the pedagogy. You're not saying, okay, I want to use VR. How do I do that now with my students? What can I, but you're thinking of what do I need? What do I want to achieve? And which type of would VR help me
Hmm.
solve this problem? And then what type of VR would solve this problem?
Hmm. Yep. I like that. I like the pedagogy first approach as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, Nergiz, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great experience wandering around Frame and hearing some more about the book, which is, of course, available on your website. I'll share the link to that in the comments.
Thank you.
And people can contact you through LinkedIn as well with any questions about Frame and virtual learning.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn or through my website, there's a contact page. Write to me. I'd be happy to hear about questions, but also about experiences. If anyone has already tried VR, that would be lovely to hear about too. Mhm.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, one thing we didn't do in VR was anything Halloweeny. Happy Halloween to anyone that's celebrating. I'm guessing there are probably Halloween VR environments out there as well. Definitely. Yep. Fantastic. Well,
There
thank
are.
you again, Nergiz, and I'll be
Thanks a
back
lot,
again in a
Teresa.
fortnight.